On an ordinary Tuesday morning, thousands of people rushed through Grand Central Station without noticing the old brown leather suitcase sitting quietly beneath a weathered wooden bench. It had no owner, no luggage tag, no destination, just years of dust collecting on its worn surface. For more than 20 years, people walked past it every single day. Some assumed it had already been checked by security. Others believed it was just another forgotten piece of luggage waiting to be thrown away. Nobody imagined that inside that forgotten suitcase was a secret powerful enough to change 3 families forever. And the man who finally opened it had no idea that his quiet morning would become the most unforgettable day of his life. His name was Ethan Brooks. At 58 years old, Ethan had spent nearly 3 decades working as the station supervisor. He wasn't famous, he wasn't rich. Most commuters didn't even know his name. But everyone knew one thing about Ethan. If something was lost, he would never stop trying to find its owner. Every morning before sunrise, Ethan walked the platforms with a warm cup of black coffee in one hand and a small notebook in the other, checking every corner of the station before the first train arrived. His coworkers often joked that he knew every crack in the station floor better than he knew his own house. Ethan would simply smile. "This station has looked after millions of people," he always said. "The least I can do is look after it." It was a simple life. He lived alone in a small apartment just a few train stops away. His wife, Sarah, had passed away 6 years earlier, after a long battle with cancer. They had dreamed of having children, but life had other plans. Since losing Sarah, Ethan had buried himself in work. The station had become his second home. Every forgotten wallet, every misplaced backpack, every lost toy that found its way back to a grateful owner reminded him that kindness still mattered. That morning seemed no different, until a young cleaner approached him. "Mr. Brooks," she called, "I found something strange." Ethan followed her toward platform 9. "There," she whispered. Hidden beneath an old wooden bench sat the dusty brown suitcase. It looked ancient. The leather was cracked. The brass locks had turned green with age. A faded luggage label hung loosely from one handle. Most of the writing had disappeared. Only 2 words could still be read. "Emily Carter." Ethan frowned. "I've never seen this before." The cleaner looked confused. "But I've worked here almost 2 years," she replied. "So have I," another employee interrupted. "And I swear that suitcase wasn't here yesterday." The 3 of them stared silently at the luggage. It made no sense. A suitcase couldn't simply appear overnight, looking like it had been abandoned for decades. Something about it felt wrong. Ethan picked it up carefully. It was surprisingly heavy, much heavier than an empty suitcase should have been. His instincts told him not to open it there. Instead, he carried it into the station's lost property office. As he gently brushed away years of dust, he noticed something else. Carved into the leather, almost hidden beneath the dirt, were 6 small words. "If found, please tell my story." Ethan's hands froze. He had never seen anything like it. For a moment, the noisy station outside seemed to disappear. There was only silence. Only the old suitcase, and a feeling deep inside him that someone's voice had been waiting decades to be heard. He reached for the rusted lock, then stopped. Whatever was inside had remained hidden for more than 20 years. Would opening it finally bring peace, or reopen wounds that had never truly healed? Ethan took a deep breath. Slowly, he turned the first lock. Ethan hesitated for one final moment before lifting the rusted metal latch. The lock gave way with a soft click. A faint smell of old paper and leather filled the small lost property office. For years, he had opened hundreds of forgotten bags, but nothing could have prepared him for what he found inside. The suitcase wasn't filled with clothes, or money, or jewelry. Instead, everything inside had been arranged with incredible care. On top lay a neatly folded baby blanket, faded from blue to pale gray. Beside it rested a tiny pair of children's shoes, no bigger than Ethan's hand. Underneath them were dozens of yellowed letters tied together with a blue ribbon. And at the very bottom, 3 family photographs. Each photograph had been carefully wrapped in wax paper, as though someone had desperately wanted to protect them from time. Ethan slowly picked up the first picture. It showed a smiling young couple standing outside Grand Central Station. The woman was holding a newborn baby. On the back, written in elegant handwriting, were the words, "Our first journey together, May 14th, 1998. Ethan turned over the second photograph. This one showed a different family. A father, a mother, and a little girl smiling in front of a small white house. Yet something immediately caught his attention. The little girl was wearing the exact same baby blanket that lay inside the suitcase. His heartbeat quickened. How could two completely different families own the same blanket? He reached for the final photograph. The moment he looked at it, his entire body froze. Standing in the background, almost hidden behind a crowd of travelers, was a younger version of himself. Ethan stared at the picture in disbelief. He remembered that day. It had been over 25 years ago. Back then, he was just a junior station employee helping passengers with their luggage. He had no memory of ever meeting the people in the photograph. Yet there he was, only a few feet away. His hands began to shake. "This can't be possible," he whispered. Just then, his office phone rang. It was the station manager. "Ethan, is everything all right?" He looked back at the photographs. I think I've just found something important." Within an hour, the station contacted the city archives. Old missing property records were searched. Police reports were reopened. But something strange happened. There was no official record that the suitcase had ever been reported missing. It was as if it had simply disappeared from history. That afternoon, a local journalist named Emma Carter arrived at the station. She specialized in forgotten stories and unsolved mysteries. The moment Ethan showed her the photographs, she became unusually quiet. Then she reached into her handbag. Without saying a word, she removed an old family photograph. She placed it beside one of the pictures from the suitcase. Ethan's eyes widened. The woman holding the newborn baby was exactly the same. Emma looked at him with tears beginning to form. "My mother's name," she whispered, "was Emily Carter." The same name written on the faded luggage tag. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The room fell completely silent. Emma had spent most of her life believing her mother died in a car accident. She had never once heard her mention a suitcase, or Grand Central Station, or the photographs. Slowly, Emma untied the blue ribbon, holding the bundle of letters together. The first envelope had only 6 handwritten words on the front. "To whoever finally finds this." Ethan looked at Emma. "I think," he said quietly, "your mother wanted someone to know the truth." Emma carefully opened the first letter. Neither of them realized that the first sentence would expose a secret hidden for more than 2 decades and connect 3 families in ways no one could have imagined. Emma unfolded the fragile letter with trembling hands. The ink had faded over the years, but every word was still readable. She began reading aloud. "If you're reading this, it means I never found the courage to come back for this suitcase. My name is Emily Carter. If fate has finally allowed someone to find it, please don't judge me until you know the whole story." Emma stopped. Her eyes filled with tears. "My mother wrote this," she whispered. Ethan nodded quietly. "Keep reading." Emma took a deep breath. 26 years ago, I boarded a train carrying my newborn daughter. I believed I was taking her somewhere safe. I had just lost my husband in a terrible accident, and I discovered people were trying to take everything he owned, including my child. Ethan looked up. "This wasn't about money," Emma continued. "I couldn't trust anyone. Every face looked like a threat. Every stranger felt dangerous. I only wanted to protect my little girl." The room fell silent. Inside the suitcase were more than 30 letters. Each one was dated only days apart. Together, they told the story of a frightened young mother desperately trying to keep her daughter alive. Then Emma opened the next letter. Her hands suddenly froze. Inside was a birth certificate. Mother, Emily Carter. Father, Jonathan Carter. Child, Grace Carter. Emma frowned. "My name isn't Grace." Ethan carefully examined the document. "Maybe," he said softly, "you weren't the child in this certificate." Emma looked confused. "What do you mean?" Ethan reached for the second family photograph. The little girl wrapped in the same blanket. What if there were 2 children? Emma's heartbeat quickened. She quickly searched through the remaining papers. Then she found another envelope. Across the front were 4 handwritten words. "The impossible choice." She slowly opened it. Inside was another letter. "The day I arrived at Grand Central Station, I realized someone was following me. I had only seconds to decide. If they found my daughter, she would never be safe." Emma could barely breathe. "So I made the hardest decision of my life." Tears rolled down her face as she continued. "I placed my baby into the arms of a kind young couple who had been praying for a child. They promised they would love her as their own. I never even learned where they lived." Ethan's eyes widened. "Oh my God." Emma continued reading. The suitcase contained every photograph, every memory, Every letter I hoped to one day give back to my daughter. But before I could return, the sentence ended abruptly. The rest of the page was stained by water, or perhaps tears. No one would ever know. The office remained completely silent. Then Ethan remembered something. The second family. He picked up the photograph again. The little girl. Emma stared at it. Grace. At that exact moment, someone knocked on the office door. It was Detective Marcus Hale. Now retired, Marcus had spent 35 years investigating unsolved missing person cases. When he saw the photograph spread across the desk, his face turned pale. I know this case. Emma looked at him. You do? Marcus nodded slowly. I've never forgotten it. He pointed to the photograph of the smiling couple. Emily Carter came to me 2 weeks before she disappeared. Ethan and Emma exchanged shocked glances. Marcus continued. She believed someone was watching her. Emma's voice trembled. My mother disappeared? Marcus lowered his head. We searched for her for months. We never found her. The room fell silent once again. Then Marcus picked up the birth certificate. His expression changed instantly. No, he whispered. This changes everything. He looked directly at Emma. I know who Grace became. Marcus carefully placed the birth certificate back onto the desk. I never forgot Emily Carter, he said quietly. She came to my office terrified. She believed powerful people were trying to take her daughter because of a family dispute. We tried to protect her, but she disappeared before we could move her to safety. Emma could barely speak. So, what happened to Grace? Marcus opened an old notebook he had carried for years. There was one clue we could never explain. A young couple reported finding an abandoned baby near Grand Central Station on that same day. They legally adopted her after no relatives could be found. Ethan looked at Emma. You said you always knew you were adopted. Emma slowly nodded. My parents told me they found me through an adoption agency. But they never knew anything about my birth mother. Marcus smiled gently. Emma, your birth name was Grace Carter. Tears streamed down Emma's face. For 32 years, she had searched for pieces of her past without realizing they had been sitting inside an old forgotten suitcase. But there was still one mystery left. What about the third family? Ethan asked. Marcus pointed to the final photograph. The couple who adopted Emma spent years wondering who her real mother was. Emily spent the rest of her life searching for the daughter she was forced to leave behind. And you, Ethan, he looked at the station supervisor. Without even knowing it, you protected the one piece of evidence that connected them all. Ethan lowered his head. For 28 years, he had walked past that platform every morning. He never imagined that one forgotten suitcase held someone's entire life story. A few weeks later, Emma organized a small memorial at Grand Central Station in honor of her mother. Ethan, Marcus, Emma's adoptive parents, and dozens of station employees gathered around the same wooden bench where the suitcase had been found. Emma placed the faded baby blanket beside a framed photograph of Emily. Then she smiled through her tears. My mother thought her story would be forgotten, she said. But because one honest man refused to ignore an old suitcase, her voice was finally heard. The station fell silent. Even the passing trains seemed quieter. Before leaving, Ethan looked at the bench one last time. For years, he believed his job was simply helping people find what they had lost. That day, he realized something far greater. Sometimes, the things we find aren't meant to be returned. They're meant to heal hearts that have been waiting for the truth. Because one forgotten suitcase didn't just change 3 families, it reminded everyone that even after decades of silence, hope can still find its way home. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to Storyloom for more unforgettable stories of families.